Greetings from Connecticut, the fifth of the original 13 colonies to ratify the U.S. Constitution. It became part of the Union on January 9, 1788. With 3.5 million people, it ranks number 29 in population. Though famed for its rural charm, Connecticut derives most of its wealth from industry and has since the middle of the 18th century.
It was the transforming force in this state. It defined everything that happened here for well over a century.
From the vulcanized rubber of Charles Goodyear to the guns of Samuel Colt, Connecticut inventors created entire industries. And for good measure, this is also the place where, in the 1920s, Yale students turned pie tins from the Frisbee Pie Company into flying saucers, thus giving birth to the ubiquitous Frisbee. New England politics have always tended toward the theatrical. But when Connecticut-born P.T. Barnum became a state legislator, the jokes about politicians and clowns were almost too easy.
Well, it doesn't surprise me because there's a lot of people in politics today that should be in the circus.
This place, however, is no laughing matter. The Library of Congress named it a Connecticut legacy, and the New Haven Preservation Trust gave it a plaque. Other states may dispute it, but anyone in Connecticut will tell you that the first hamburgers in U.S. history were served at Louis' Lunch.
The best invention in the history of Connecticut is the invention of the hamburger. The first hamburger was made and sold at Louis' Lunch, which is this little shack. It's still open for lunch in downtown New Haven.
Louis ran a small lunch wagon selling steak sandwiches to local factory workers. A frugal businessman, legend has it that he didn't like to waste the excess beef from his daily lunch rush. So he ground up some scraps and served it between pieces of toasted bread. An American classic was born. Connecticut calls itself the Constitution State because of a set of laws adopted in 1639.
Connecticut had a problem. Whereas places like Massachusetts and Virginia started with patents from the king or charters from the company, Connecticut's people had just kind of wandered off and started a colony.
There's no presiding authority. So how do they set up a society that would run?
In 1639, they created a document called the Fundamental Orders, which Connecticut takes pride in calling the first constitution ever written.
England, however, wanted to impose control on the independent-minded colony and merge Connecticut into a province that would include all of New England. Sir Edmund Andros, who had been appointed governor of New England by the king, was ordered to take away Connecticut's new charter. And he meant business.
He came to Hartford with 70 soldiers. 70 soldiers doesn't sound like many, maybe, until you see them on your front lawn. And he came to a meeting of the Connecticut General Assembly. He read a decree from the king saying, I want the charter back.
As Andros waited, the candles in the room suddenly flickered out.
And at that point, another person picks up the charter, which is on the table in front of him, and hands it out the window to Captain Wadsworth, who spirits it down the street and puts the charter in the hollow of an old oak tree. And the charter oak, the place where the charter was saved, became, over time for Connecticut, probably the most important single symbol of the state and of what the state stands for.
Whether the candles went out by accident or by design is an enduring Connecticut mystery.
If I was to speculate on that, they knew it was a breeze outside that night, and I bet you somebody got up and said, let me open up this window, and sat back down, and all of a sudden...
We might think that, well, we should know the details. Somebody should have come forth and, done a tell-all biography, how I hid the charter. 17th century people could keep a secret.
It's no secret that for hundreds of years, the people of Connecticut worked the open waters of the Atlantic and Long Island Sound. Fishing, whaling, oystering, and shipbuilding. The sea has been the lifeblood for towns like Mystic.
Availability of timber, good deep water, protected harbors. The Mystic River, particularly, was an early site of shipbuilding.
Even before sailing ships were replaced by steam-powered vessels, Connecticut had pioneered a very different way to navigate the sea, traveling under it.
Even as far back as the American Revolution, David Bushnell developed a little submarine called the Turtle, and actually came close to exploding a torpedo next to a British ship in New York Harbor.
Another tradition was born, and Connecticut later became known as the submarine state. During World War II, Electric Boat's 12,500 employees launched 74 submarines at their plant in Groton. These 74 vessels accounted for 39% of all Japanese ships sunk. The Cold War sparked more innovation. The Soviet Union's launch of its Sputnik satellite created deep fears of an atomic Russia. President Dwight Eisenhower asked Electric Boat to develop a new kind of submarine, a nuclear sub. that could launch nuclear missiles from any part of the Earth's oceans.
Which was capable of firing missiles, was going to go to sea before 1960. And on December 31st, 1959, that ship went to sea and fulfilled that requirement. And it was quite a feather in our cap. And it was an event comparable with the launching of that satellite.
Connecticut's maritime tradition actually gave birth to its principal industry, insurance. As more ships set sail for England, the West Indies, and the Far East, merchants became concerned about the inherent risks to their thriving trade: fires, pirates, storms, and accidents. The insurance industry was created when groups of merchants began to share these risks. On the bitterly cold night of December 16, 1835, a fire in a wooden building in downtown New York City quickly spread through a 20-square-block area of Manhattan's burgeoning financial district, destroying nearly 700 buildings. Estimated damages of $26 million bankrupted all but 3 of the city's 26 fire insurance companies. It was Hartford's insurance companies that ultimately helped the city get back on its feet and established Connecticut's capital as the insurance capital of the world. As technology advanced, Hartford's insurance companies kept pace by specializing and offering different kinds of specialized protection to both individuals and whole new industries. In 1920, the Hartford Insurance Company insured Yankee slugger Babe Ruth to protect his earnings in the event of sickness. In the 1930s, they wrote contract bonds for large-scale projects like the Hoover Dam and San Francisco's favorite landmark, the Golden Gate Bridge.
The defining characteristic of the insurance industry here was that it spread itself out over almost everything. That if you wanted insurance for any purpose, Hartford was the place to look.
Look here, I'm talking about America, sweet America.